The series is over. Another 4 years to wait until we can join together and do it all over again. This one ended with the Wallabies roaring back to avoid a whitewash, and didn't they deserve it? Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be here with you throughout the Lions. The Lions series is over, but I'm still going to be here for loads of content coming up. So hit subscribe to follow along. And for one last time, this Lions series, I've got Elko with me again today. Mate, what are your overall emotions following that?
Yeah, we won 2-1. Win Aussies. Bit good, to be honest with you. Mixed emotions, I'm sure, like the players, but what a cool time it's been. Sort of watching the guys go at it, and it's always the same, isn't it? We're all kind of bitching and moaning all the way through, and then it comes to an end. You're like, oh, mad. So I think I'll be setting up a little savings account for 4 years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. As are the Lions, but well, Lions for 12 years' time, but we'll talk about that
Yeah.
later. I did a full-time thoughts video earlier today where I go into all of the incidents in lots of detail. So I'll link that up above Alco's head. As always, this match review is a bit more general thoughts, a bit more themes, that kind of stuff, and stuff around the game. So let's start with the pre-game. And I loved what the Australians did for their captain's run. They all went out wearing fake tashes
Oh, yeah.
for Nick White for the captain's run, which was just genius, I thought.
Yeah, lovely little touch, isn't it? It's even Joe Schmidt was wearing one, which I think is pretty wild because he's such a sort of stricty schoolmaster type. But yeah, probably a galvanizing thing as well. A nice little send off for the quiet, mannerly little chap who had an absolute stormer today, which we predicted might happen. Yeah, but a really nice touch, and probably after the crappy week they'd had, probably quite nice to, because sometimes you feel bad about laughing and stuff, don't you? Because and that probably just broke it and just went, relax and get on with it, and we're all mates. Let's go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other big story pre-game was obviously the weather, which was monsoon-like at times. It was absolutely horrific. And the bit I want to talk about was Blair Kinghorn's pre-game interview with Will
Yes.
Greenwood on the pitch. And at the start of it, it was dry. And by the end, it was absolutely sheeting down. And as Will Greenwood sort of said to Blair Kinghorn, oh, not good for the back three, is it? He just sort of turned around and went,
Yeah. All the sort of lip readers were like, oh, yeah, and it kind of there was a bit of a tell there, wasn't there? It was a bit like, okay, interesting. Whereas I'm sure if they had been sort of interviewing Nick White or maybe the Aussie back three, they would have gone, hey, awesome, perfect.
it was just so funny. I loved it.
Brilliant.
But of course, all of that, weather, everything, the tightness, the tension that was building around this game meant that it was going to be really dominated by who could control territory, who could maintain pressure, and who could be the most physical. And I think the Aussies definitely won the first two of those. I think the physicality actually was pretty even across the board, but because they won the territory and because they kept the pressure on, it looked like they possibly had more energy throughout the game, and they just pressured the Lions relentlessly throughout this game, I thought.
Yeah, it's one of those ones I'm gonna need to rewatch and just see, because there's certain bits, but funny enough, I don't know if you saw Tyke Byrne being interviewed after, and Greenwood said about the energy levels, and he shut him down straight away, and sort of said, "No, our energy levels are absolutely fine, actually." And I sort of surprised how quick and he was. And then I thought, he's right, because some of the defensive sets that the Lions put in were absolutely out of this world, and the work rate was mega, mega, mega. But I think where they had the edge is what you spoke about in our pre-pod, was around sort of that collision area coupled with the weather. You can't beat physics. You just can't. And I think that frustrated, because I think actually we defended much better. I think we were way more aggressive. We went after Skelton a lot more, double hits. One went low at a limb, and someone else tried to whack him. But he's so big and so large, he still falls and goes forward, sort of thing, which everyone was talking about beforehand. For me, it was For me, what edged it was their spice and their edge, and how they got away with it. For me, I think they possibly stepped over. I'm all for shithousery. I'm all for holding people down on the ground and everything else. I think they went over the edge, and um, but that's, they were clever in what they did. I just thought the referee lost control very early. I was giggling, going, when he was saying to the captains many times, control your players, control this. I was like, you control them, not like we were the only people to get a yellow card in the whole game. It was us. Whereas White was being just point, like, he definitely should have got yellow, and Skelton should have got yellow, and some of our boys should have got yellow. Cian should have got a red, which we'll probably, if you haven't already spoken, we'll probably have a chat about. So for me, there was a bit of a lack of control there with the referee, which meant then, because we couldn't sort it out ourselves, we just weren't big enough and couldn't match that. They won that battle and thoroughly deserved the win because we just couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, interested on the niggle thing, because I think as a player you would have been more into that than I was. I was not into that kind of stuff at all as a player, but I recognise it's part of the game, what it can be, and I actually thought they were right on the edge. But for me, I don't think they stepped over it. I thought they would just about okay. The referee did give them 10 yards against Skelton for that first scuffle, and I thought that was something. I mean, the 10 yards in that area of the field meant nothing really, but it was a statement. I thought it was okay. It was on the edge. Another referee might have done some yellow cards, and I wouldn't have complained about that either. But I thought it was okay.
See, for me there, I think, just especially because of the weather and the conditions, and it was just going to be such a shit fight and a mess. I think the referees there should have binned Skelton and either Dan Sheehan or Ryan, and just gone, we're not having it. Just get out of it. And we didn't, and it just went on and boiled over. And the Aussies knew that, and fair play to them. They then just kept going and heaping it on because they knew this guy was never didn't want to, I don't think, sin bin anybody. I don't want to be like them last week and whinge. They thoroughly deserved it. Do you know what I mean? And you just have to get on it. But I think for the betterment of the game, I think they probably still would have won, to be honest with you. I probably would have been. I mean, because Sheen goes in there and pushes White, then White reacts, and then Skelton's right in straight away, and then they're all at it, which I loved. I don't mind that. That's cool. But I just think probably a double yellow there would have settled things down, and
Yeah,
may have
you're
made the
probably
game
right.
a bit less messy.
Yeah, a different referee may well have done that, and like I said, I wouldn't disagree with that either. In Sheehan's defence, there, I think he was just trying to get the ball. By the way, when that first one kicked off. Anyway, let's leave that one there. What the Australians did then also do on the back of all of this, all the things that we're talking about, is they got ahead on the scoreboard. And in a game like this, when all the margins are so tight and the scoring is likely to be low, being ahead on the scoreboard is such a bonus. It has double the significance, I would say. And it was a brilliant try, actually. Really, really similar to the try that won the game last week in terms of a wide pass to a 2-on-2 on the outside. Suoliti did almost exactly the same as Keenan did. It was just the winger stepped in on this occasion. He passed the ball out for Peach to score in the corner. And it was a really great try.
He had a great game, didn't he, Peach, the left winger? I thought he was absolutely superb and was full of niggle himself and playing with a smile on his face and giving it some. Yeah, they took it really well, and it was almost carbon copy, wasn't it, of last week with Keenan. After probably a bit, maybe a similar amount of phases actually. Maybe it seemed quite long ball and play. But yeah, you're right, and because of the game, and we always knew it was going to be a meat grinder, pressurized game. Although we predicted that we would run away with it in the last 20. You're right, being ahead on that scoreboard just heaps pressure on, and the psychology of the whole 3-0 thing, and it just gets them on board. Yeah, but we didn't deal with it very well.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're talking about Peach, well, you were. I agree. I thought he was really excellent. He just wanted to take it to the Lions, didn't he? Like physically, he was into it all the time. He whacked Freeman when he had a chance, which led to a turnover. And then I look at the other guys that came in as well. And of course, from where they were last week. You need the guys that come in to play well, and they all did. Tom Hooper at blindside had a couple of really important turnovers. It was really physical. Taniula Tupu carried the ball
Super.
fantastically. It was and
Unbelievable.
won some strong penalties as well. And Nick White, we've already spoken about, not just that gritty, nasty aggressiveness when they didn't have the ball, but when he was on the ball as
Oh,
well, he kept his forwards going forwards, and his kick accuracy was superb.
oh, he was absolutely class. And we said we spoke about it in pre-pod that a pre-game pod that like why was he not in the squad before? I mean, I just don't get it. He kicked superbly. He dealt with the ref superbly. He sort of um marshaled it really well, and you could see it was very Joe Schmidt, some of that stuff where they had a bit like last week where it was um last week it was Valentini or Skelton Valentini. Then this week you could see it was Tupou then was taking that thing where they just kind of kept going, and it was like just off nine, just play off nine, hard lines, get momentum. I thought all the guys that came in for them were superb, um, and you know, obviously they must be. I mean, they obviously celebrated like they'd won the series. Okay, look, they won the game. Fantastic, well done, lads. But they've got to be they've got to be looking at themselves, going, or not them. I think Joe has a lot of answers to a lot of questions to answer. And I don't know if you saw this pre-match interview. What he said when he was asked about the series, and quote, "It was never about the series for this group." It's like what? So he said, "It was never about the series about this group. We're building." It's like, wow, that's interesting. I mean, well, clearly it wasn't because they, if you look at how close last week was. I mean, arguably you could say they could have won it if they had have picked some of these guys in Test One or made it about this series. I don't know. I mean, he could be just saying that to take the pressure off the players, etc., etc. But it seemed a really odd thing for him to say before the game. Maybe he was just
Yeah,
sort
I
of
mean,
wondering about 3-0.
yeah, I think maybe it's the start of a long season for them, so maybe it wasn't just about the series. Is what he kind of meant, although those words say it differently. I think maybe that was what he was trying to say. When we're thinking about the Australians, though, because we've already mentioned the guys that came in, but when we're thinking about the players that played well today, when I go through the list of each player from each team, I'm thinking mostly Australians. Like the players that I think I can remember doing really important things in the game, they're pretty much all Australians. I thought the ones we mentioned already, but then Lennox Itau carried the ball remarkably well in the centre for Australia. Suoliti was really physical both sides of the ball. And Nick Frost, I thought, won so many lineouts on the Lions throw that was another massive factor in this game.
Yeah, I wonder did they watch Katie Taylor's video for that she did for the Lions, because particularly in those conditions everything goes out the window, and it is about will, and it's about who wants it more. And it wasn't a night for guys to step up and do wonderful things in terms of crazy skill stuff. It was your centers carrying the ball really well, your back row carrying the ball really well, and then massive hits. Um, and they were just better. They just had more moments. Because they had more ball, right? And we couldn't. The same thing has happened to us before. We just couldn't seem to keep the ball, and it's how you beat Farrell's teams. You have to win the man test, and then you got to keep the ball and frustrate, because you can't do anything when you don't have the ball to prove that you're a better man, sort of thing. And the line I thought was really interesting. Uh, we all knew that the Lions line out was going to go to absolute shit tonight. As soon as Sam Warburton did the whole stat about, I was like, oh no, don't. No hooker wants to be told that he's amazing. You could see, I knew the wheels were going to fall off. It was what he'd what was it, 1 from 40 lineouts. He was like 98%, and I'd say his percentage now is way down to 86 or something. But also TT, and maybe skipping ahead, but just on how many lineouts they won, it was mainly, I think, when Marrow went off, and I think Chesham was calling lineouts from therein. Would that be right? I'm pretty sure he was looking at sort of thing, and I just feel that he must have a tell or he's very predictable because it wasn't like they nearly won the line out. They knew what the call was almost. They predicted it and got up ahead of our guys on 3 or 4 occasions, which is crazy.
Yeah, I completely agree. There was something going on there because they were in the perfect spot so often to win those lineouts. And sometimes there's lots of things. Obviously, everybody knows this. It goes into a lineout. You know, the throw, the lift, the jump, the call, all of these things. And it looked like lots of it was going right, except for the fact that the Australians were right
We're
there, and it
there.
was Nick
Mm,
Frost time and time again who
yeah,
just got up and won lineouts on the Lions' throw. And we're talking earlier about pressure, maintaining pressure, being able to give yourself a chance to play, and all these entries that the Lions got taken away from them by remarkable Australian lineout defence.
yeah. They were class. Frost was class. I think there was definitely one really bad overthrow Sheehan did where Conan went up the front and it just went way off. But otherwise, you're right. It was Frost or whoever was there. Everything else seemed okay. It wasn't like the throw was bad or someone missed a lift. It was the guy was the guy was there, which is really frustrating. And then it goes back to exactly what we're talking about. If you can't win your own ball, you cannot impart your game plan and your physicality on the opposition and momentum, and the clock keeps ticking, and then you get sucker punched with a killer try from some young kid as well.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but let's talk about the all the HIAs just before half time.
Oh
Itoje
yeah,
off with a HIA, Tommy Freeman off with a HIA. He looked like he'd smashed his nose all over his face.
yeah,
And Tom Liner kicked 3 points to put the Aussies 8-0 up, and then immediately got hoiked off for his HIA. And if the TMO had spotted how this had happened in real time, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a red card, certainly a,
100%,
bunker review, and
hundred
certainly
percent.
upgraded to a red.
Yeah, 100%. He'll get cited for that, and he'll I would imagine he'll have a ban and have to serve it when the season restarts. Yeah, it was a nasty thing, and it's the first time I've seen Dan Sheehan rattled ever in a Test game or for Leinster ever. He was skin got under his skeleton skin. Skeleton got underneath his skin big time, and really rattled his cage. Um, but there's no excuse for tucking your arm and putting it into someone's head is outrageous. And rightfully he'll I'm sure get banned. What kind of um not annoyed me, but obviously the Aussie commentators must have been talking about it because our guys didn't talk about it once, and it just kept coming up. But I was like, why are they showing this? This was ages ago, and then straight after half time they showed it again twice. I was like, they're obviously having a bit of a moan, rightfully so on this occasion. Um, didn't see what happened to Marrow um, at all, so be interesting to understand. And then you're right with Freeman, he just kind of got rolled in the end. I think maybe caught a knee accidentally, and his nose was done. He was gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And another HIA very soon afterwards as well at the start of the second half when James Ryan got his head, just put it on the wrong side of the tackle when getting Will Skelton. And that was a nasty, nasty hit to the head. It can happen when you're that low as James Ryan is, you lose the ability to see the target that you're trying to hit late on. And I think he just got the initial line of attack wrong because he was being aggressive. And once he's got his head down, he can't see that coming. And it was a sickening blow, to be honest.
Yeah, it was really not. And you could see it. You could see that that ball coming out was quite slow, so he did an awful amount of time to see who was coming and to be like, I'm going to especially after everything that had happened in the first half, and came out the blocks. And you're right, it was got his head on the wrong side, and the knee just caught him, which led to a massive fracas. Now I don't know what happens. Skelton for me is doing nothing but trying to protect Ryan. I've seen him do that for La Rochelle loads of times because often when people tackle him, they end up in a heap on the ground. And I think he was trying to protect, but Porter, I think, thought he was going to have a word there. I think White, they're saying that White was having a bit of which what I was talking about, where I think it's just slightly gone over the edge there for me. If there's a guy on the ground there out, and it was clearly bad with how they reacted in terms of medical. And unfortunately for Ryan, Ryan has a history of this, and missed an awful lot of game time about 3 or 4 years ago, I think, with concussion. So pray firstly he's fit and healthy, and he's okay and good to travel home, and then secondly that this doesn't have a long lasting effect on the guy's career.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the early signs are good because he was up and about by the end of the game in his tracksuit and all of that kind of stuff. So
Good.
early signs are good, but yeah, absolutely. Hopefully that recovery is quick and painless for him. Then the lightning came. Just as the game wasn't hot enough already, suddenly all the players are off the pitch. I've never seen this in a live televised game before, and it was quite wild. It was quite sort of crazy and a little bit what's going on here. But we got looking into all the changing rooms, and we saw Finn Russell on his phone. We saw the Lions themed bean bags, which I personally loved, and they should get those in the merch store straight away. Somebody threw a towel over the camera, which was a bit like, what are you doing? Like, just let people have
I didn't
access. That
see
was a
that.
very strange thing. Yeah,
Oh, on
so yeah,
our side.
apparently it was David Nucifora, is what people are saying. I don't know whether that's true or
Yeah,
not, but that's
Aussie knob.
um, but the thing that I liked about this is that you saw the real value of Aled Walters during this period, because every little conversation he was having, people finished it with smiles. And like, you can't stay high, like really tense and in that moment through that entire, because it was 40 minutes between when they finished and when they eventually started playing again. You can't stay emotionally high through that. So you have to be able to relax and then build it back up again. And Aled Walters was doing a great job at that with the players.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my background is in strength and conditioning, and I was scratching my head going, what do you do with this? Like how, and every player is going to be different. And I was looking at Tyke Furlong going, I'm not sure how happy I'd be to see my guy on a beanbag just chilling out with a towel over him. Because like I was thinking, guys going to seize. I was really worried about Curry with his hip and stuff, and does he need to keep moving? But then how can he keep moving? Obviously they got a massive space down there, but they don't have 27 watt bikes. They've only got one or two. So I was like, how do you keep what I did find really interesting, I don't know if you spotted this, is that I think at halftime a lot of these modern players, like we were just at the end of it where we change our jersey to a fresh jersey, and that would kind of give you, and we copied that through Clive in the World Cup when England won and stuff. That was one of the things he brought in. But did you notice they were all putting on fresh pair of socks? And I'm just wondering now,
Yeah.
next year, the kit men now will be going, oh no, all the lads are going to be changing their socks. And I was thinking, probably psychologically, that's quite a nice thing to do, is to put on a nice fresh pair of socks and go sort of thing. So, yeah, lots more. The sort of budget for kit will go up by 20% next year.
Yeah, absolutely. But back out onto the pitch, they did come. And we've spoken about Skelton and his physicality, but he also showed loads of moments of really great handling ability. And the
He
first
did.
play, I think it was after they came back on, he put
He
Tupu
popped.
through a
Yeah.
hole, and it was
Yeah.
only halted by the tiniest tap tackle by Owen Farrell. It was, again, a classic combination, because they teamed up a couple of times. They seemed to be able to read each other's play really well.
Really nice. Very clever. Because as we were just talking about, before that break, because the Irish, Freudian slip, the Lions defense was coming up so quick and hunting for him, and that's what happened to Ryan. That he was clever, he knew, and sort of that's where he's really really dangerous. And often it's actually after contact that he gets the ball away, because he can just one-handed. But that was just a beautiful little tip on, as they call it. And then, yeah, I think Kinghorn was pretty happy to see your man drop the ball, because I think otherwise he was running over the top of him big time.
Yeah, it was knocked on in some fashion. But you mentioned it earlier. The next score came soon afterwards, and this, again, it comes from pressure. The pressure of being 8-0 down, the pressure of the clock ticking away, the pressure of the weather, and the fact that the Lions really hadn't played a lot of rugby. They tried to play from around about the halfway line, out the back play from a set piece. Farrell had the ball. He had three men outside, and he looked at the wider players and then thought Kinghorn short was the right option. Kinghorn clearly didn't want the ball because he tried to ship it onto Aki, who was actually in front of him by that stage. Ball drops on the floor. Jorgensen on it in a flash and was under the sticks before we knew it.
Yeah, yeah, a brilliant finish by him to take the opportunity there. Yeah, it was a little bit poor. They Farrell said after they overplayed a bit, and we I felt we didn't look comfortable having to play like we had to play in those conditions, because I don't think we played like that the whole tour. Um, often they were looking at each other and just kind of kick the ball, and Finn didn't have a great game with the boot sort of thing. And you're right, Farrell did. Looking back at it, Bundy and Sheehan, I think, were the players outside. They completely overran the play. I mean, they were just two, and that's why Farrell didn't have an option. He just had to give it to. Well, he did have an option, take it up himself, sort of thing. Maybe that was the one to do, or kick early. But yeah, I think we overplayed there. I think the play there is just kick the ball down into the 22, get rid of the ball. Not rocket science. In those conditions, almost you're better off not having the ball as long as it's in their half, and we didn't do that well enough.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, actually, because quite often it's easy to judge based on the result what actually happened. But imagine if they'd scored from that, and would probably be saying how brave it was of them to go and try and do that. Interesting thing is, later in the game, the Lions did play more kick, retrieve rugby afterwards to try and get position and get back into the game. So I wonder if they'd just spoken about it and they just sort of said, right, maybe if we get to this sort of time in the game, maybe we do need to have a crack. We do need to throw one shape at them at least to have a go, because the later in the game it gets, the more they'll be expecting it, the more they'll just drift soft. So I don't know. It's a tricky one, but it did seem like the scoreboard pressure was playing a part there for me.
Yeah, agreed. I do wonder. I mean, just judging by what happened last week, and did the Lions always feel that they had to absorb everything, and then the game would come to them in the final moments, like it did last week? Maybe not as tight. Maybe they felt like we did, that they would they especially with a 6-2 bench, especially with those conditions, that the game would come to them as it went on, and that the likes of Tupou and Skelton would be gone. And I just wonder, because of the weird break we had, they got much longer. They didn't come off as earlier this time around, and I'm just wondering, was that slightly part of it, that it didn't come to me in time, but also that sucker punch. I think that was the end of it. Really, once he'd scored, we were always going to find it hard to come back into it. But it was weird, that break. I think, obviously for both sides, but it gave them, I think, a bit extra time.
I agree that, along with the early Lions injuries in the forwards as well, with the Toji and Ryan going off, I think with them gone, that meant that the impact of the bench later was lessened as well. So we didn't get that that real, and Genge was on early as well.
Genge came on,
So
yeah.
I think all those things played into not getting that switch in sort of momentum and power towards the end of the game that I'm pretty sure the Lions were planning on.
Yeah, yeah, because best laid plans until you get punched in the face, sort of thing. And I think it was probably right to bring Genge on, but what I've defended Porter vehemently on this pod all of the time. I've got to say, I I've seen him at angles before, but he was. I mean, you're the expert in this. What are your is Tupo bringing him in, or but he seems to be starting out and in more so than I've ever seen him.
Well, look, as always, with scrum decisions, it's 45%, 55%. They're both doing stuff wrong, right? But it depends on who wins that battle of the shoulders right at the very start. Tupu does like to scrum across. He does like to get across. But if you get a good hit and manage to stay square, then you can get him then up and out of the scrum. But if he breaks you through that inside shoulder and does get across you, then, as the Lou said, as Porter, your hips are going to swing out and it looks
Yeah,
all kind of illegal. What essentially you've just been beaten to that shoulder pressure, that right shoulder versus right shoulder. And yeah, they both scrum in. They both typically try and scrum in. Interestingly, when Genge came on, you could see that first scrum, he was scrumming to be as legal as he possibly could. Like, you could see him fighting to stay up and
yeah,
wider. And as soon as actually won the penalty because Tupo collapsed and went in underneath him.
yeah,
So I think I think it was a really tough battle, and I think they both try and play right on the edge of legality there. And because the Wallabies were going forward in a lot of those scrums, that enabled Tupu to straighten up and get through. Porter's hips swung out, and then that's when the penalties come.
Yeah, and there was one. I mean, knowing Joe Smith, I think they probably were talking to the officials about Porter and sort of complaining and stuff. Because and the reason why I say that was, the one we got done for standing up, and you could see Porter pop up, and I was like, oh my god, they like Tupou's absolutely destroyed him. But actually, no. What had happened was what you said had gone on. I think Tupou went in and kind of actually Porter probably won that battle. But what we didn't see until the other angle was their flanker then slips his bind and then comes in underneath Porter and pops him up. Still been a penalty against, but that's clever play, isn't it?
Yeah, the Australians got going forward. That's the most important thing. And
Yes.
they did so before anything illegal happened. So it's a very tough one for referees. Obviously, we talk about it, scrumming a lot on the pod, and especially the refereeing decisions around it. Of course, my opinion, again, is just my opinion. There's probably someone else with equal experience as me, better, whatever, that might have a very different opinion. It's a very tough thing to
You'd
do.
have
I
to be
felt the
Jason
scrum
Leonard,
was
mate.
refereed. I thought the scrum was refereed really well today.
Yeah.
Overall,
Yeah.
I didn't see a decision that made me go, "That's definitely wrong."
No.
Which
No.
I don't know. It's quite
Yeah.
rare, I think.
The Aussies were pretty annoyed with that penalty that Genge won, though. Like really angry about it. Joe was going mental, but of course they would be, wouldn't they? But yeah, no, I think he did all right to be honest. And what was great to see was that just hardly any reset scrums in the whole Test series. It was very tidy and clean, and as a spectacle, for people that don't know the game as well. At least we didn't have to go through lots and lots of reset rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so 15-0. And I'm thinking at that point, with the weather conditions the way they are, the way the game had gone, that the Lions really were pretty much out of it. I thought it was a long way back from there. But then
Yeah,
Wilson, the Australian captain, dropped the kickoff. And I've got to say, I was really impressed with him again today. He is an absolute
quality.
warrior for the Australians. But he dropped the kickoff, which allowed the Lions an entry. And this time they actually maintained a little bit of pressure down there. And as I think in the first half, they did this as well. When they got into territory, I thought they looked quite effective with their driving, with their forward carries. I thought they actually made more ground than the Australians did when they had the ball. But it's just that the Australians had it for so much longer. Eventually, that led to Jack Morgan getting driven over for 7-15. And I suddenly thought, if we can get another score now very quickly, we've got a chance. Unfortunately, we absolutely duffed our exit with Keenan kicking it out on the full after Russell had just gone outside the 22 and passed it back in. And that, again, another entry allowed by the Lions. And the Australians took full advantage, with McDermott eventually getting over for 22-7.
Yeah, it was sucker, wasn't it? Exactly the same emotions. I was texting with not Harty. Harty was unavailable down in Wexford, but Catherine Kavanagh, CK was my sounding board, and sort of she was saying we're toast sort of after Jorgensen has got that sucker punch try. I was like, no, if we score after your man drop, I said if we score here, it's on. It's definitely on. And we did well. We did well to score. And you're right. That was for me. That was. I think Finn Russell should have taken responsibility. That was a little bit of the old Finn Russell there. I think he should have just taken responsibility. He'd done the step. He should have either just kicked it or not. But once he stepped inside, I think just shoveling it back on. I think he just should have booted it. Just whack it down. And yeah, it was a bit of a brain fart from Keenan, wasn't it? It was just didn't think, and he knew straight away. And then from there, we just couldn't keep them out, could we? They could. There was blood in the water. They could sense it. And I really like that scrum half actually. McDermott, I think he's great with that score in the end. I think he's a super player. But the manner of that try, yeah, I mean that was it, wasn't it? That's kind of summed the game up in many respects. It was we defended okay and hard, and then this little scrabble, and that was it. We're done. Toast. Very disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, we defended okay, and we did. Well, actually, I thought we defended really well, but the
Yeah,
Australians just maintained pressure. They managed to keep hold of the ball, and most importantly, composure. Because when you're getting knocked back, and they weren't winning the game line all the time at all, but they just stuck at it, and they stuck at it long enough to get penalty advantages, and eventually a yellow card warning, and eventually the yellow card to Kelleher, and it was only after that that McDermott got over, and that was definitely the game done after that. But credit to the Australians because it was the composure, I think. When the Lions were whacking them pretty hard, I thought the defence was good. It was just they managed to keep hold of the ball and thoroughly deserved another try.
yeah, yeah. It's when the conditions are like that. It's just about running hard and be composed. Don't need to do anything flashy, right? You just need to carry the ball as hard as you can, and eventually, especially when you get it. As soon as the referee says advantage, and the defensive team were in big trouble, sort of thing. And yeah, they just bashed us and bashed us and bashed us. But you're absolutely right. When we had the ball and we seemed to get much more yardage, which will be the very very disappointing thing I think for the team is because they'll look back on this and kind of go, we just didn't have enough ball in the right places. But that's because the Aussies just won that had that edge in the bit that counts, the will.
Yeah, talking about flashy and ball carrying though, Ben Earl on the pitch as a replacement did have a couple of fantastic carries towards the end of the game. He sort of got flying up the middle and again flashy and carrying. Let's talk about Will Stewart and his yellow boots as he drove over
Saw
for a
that, yeah.
try in the last minute. Those must be his spares, I'm guessing, with the ones from last week not being repaired as yet. I love Finn Russell, by the way, after that try. There was about a second left on the clock, I think, or 2 or 3 or whatever. He tried to rush a conversion so they could get another play and go and try and score another try, which I just love that attitude. The game was done, the game was lost, but he still
Yeah.
wanted to try and make the score look a little bit better.
Yeah, I'd say there's quite a few Lions fans hoping he didn't because they're all going to miss their flights. Getting out of there late. Um, but it's funny because I was thinking exactly the same thing. I noticed his boots then and there. I was like, oh, yellow boots. So some clever boots company has obviously got a little deal with him because they were lovely, they were very flashy, and they were low cut as well, which I thought was interesting. Fair play to him.
I wonder if he went out and bought them this week. I wonder if they're brand new. I hope they are. I'd love to know
Oh,
the
they're
story behind that.
TT. They are 100% brand new. 100%. Because that guy has never worn anything other than high cut black boots, probably Mizuno's, since he was playing. He was probably when he was under
Russell
nines
Ashford.
playing scrum half. Yeah, he was probably wearing those.
Right then, player of the series though, Finn Russell and Ty Burn, depending on who was awarding the thing. What on earth is that all about? Why have they
No, it
given
was
two players of the
they
series?
haven't. No, I was literally just reading it. No, Finn Russell got it. He got some Prince, some weird like Duke of Edinburgh. I don't know, some weird thing. I was just literally looking at it because I couldn't work it out. By the way, the guy that owns Howdens. Did you see what he's? I want to meet him. He looks like a great laugh. And I'm pretty sure they designed that thing so they could fill it with beer. Like it was like the biggest beer glass I've ever seen. And perfect for Finn, who I'm sure was leading the charge last weekend. But yeah, no, I mean, you could arguably give it to both of those guys. I thought, thought they were both had some great sort of moments and stuff like that. But yeah, well, it was weird. I don't understand what was going on, and it was also really weird that the girl left in that we were listening to the talk between Finn and this very eccentric owner of Howdens is clearly absolutely minted.
Yeah, it was funny. Some other things post game that I really liked is that apparently Ty Furlong is already getting the guys involved, ready to try and organise a 12-year reunion back in Australia. You know, they're all going to pay into an account monthly until then and get back together, which I love because I mean all the talk is that this has been a really really close Lions party, and I love that because that's a lot of what I got out of this sport. So I love the fact that they're still getting that at the absolute elite end of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, presumably there's a fly. Well, we know there's going to be a fly on the wall coming out. I'd be very interested to see. They seem extremely close. Young Farrell spoke well about it. Isn't it nice to see him smiling and stuff? He just seems just a different. Even then, when he was on the pitch and he could hear the booing, and he looked up and he was like, "Yeah, it's me." He just doesn't care. It's nice because he doesn't deserve half the flack he gets. Right, he's a good guy, but he spoke very clearly around sort of whatever they've done in behind the scenes. It is interesting though, isn't it? Because surely there's a lot of annoyed guys there. Um, that didn't get to play at all. And in terms of the test series and stuff, and especially with how it went tonight, because arguably there will be people saying, I've seen some pundits who are wax lyrical about the Lions for the last sort of 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden now they're not a good side, and this and that's just get lost sort of thing. And you can't take what the Aussies did to us away from that. We don't suddenly become a rubbish team, and they don't suddenly become the number one in the world either, sort of thing. But I'd love and I suppose what was an advantage to Farrell is, I think maybe, is that there was so few guys on that had been on a Lions tour before, very few, versus other years. So a lot of them didn't have anything to compare it to. So the guys that came off '97 and went on 2001, some of it wasn't great, was it? Look at Dawson and things, what happened with that sort of thing. So, but and the other thing is, I would imagine Farrell will be there in 4 years' time. Touch wood, all being well. I think he'd be a great pick as long as Ireland keeps going well. So guys that are likely to be on the next tour ain't gonna say anything bad about the tour, so we might never ever find out if there was anything. And I don't know. Sometimes you kind of need some niggle in the back. I'm sure there was during training. I'm sure Pollock was putting it about and stuff like that. But it looked like I would have loved to have been a player or part of the staff and just to experience that. Just a pity they didn't get the three, but they won a series.
Yeah. Okay, let's finish off. We've spoken a lot about Australia in this show, and rightly so. Let's just look forward for them a little bit as well, because they're now going into the Rugby Championship and then more tests after that. Their big problem in recent years is that they've had big performances like the last couple that we've seen in this series, but they've not been able to do it consistently. They've had the big performances, then had proper drop-offs in between. How do you think they're going to go forward? Do you think they're going to manage to get some consistency in their game?
Well, you would have seen from my socials, which I know you were looking at, but you didn't like the one I put about. They have a blueprint, mate. They have a complete blueprint. They need a monsoon electric storm, and to start a barroom bloody brawl every 2 seconds. That is the way to play, and they will beat anybody. I jest, I jest. Yeah, I mean, look, the irony is that Joe Schmidt is one of the most consistent coaches in world rugby, right? So, um, and he's probably actually right about sort of not what he said, but building blocks through this series. They would have had so much learning through this period of time. Um, I think they've got a gem in Liner. I really do. I think he's going to be a really good player, and I think they've got some good players outside. Obviously, with the centre there, Swahili, who's clearly an athlete. Whether 13 is the right position for him, I don't know. Um, but they've got. It's so tough because they now, if they were playing Argentina next, it would be quite nice. They've got them the next period, but they've got to go away to South Africa now. And if I was South Africa, I know what I'd be doing. I would be, because you know what South Africans are like. They don't like any other country having the lights shone on them, and they'd be sitting there going, "Well, they just beat the Lions. We'll show them, and we'll send a message up to our British and Irish friends that we're the ones." And they will. I think they'll absolutely try and kill them, judging by their training, that footage that's come out this week. They're up for it. So it's a really tough one. I see them getting wiped in the next couple of games. But I think in the long term, I think Joe's done an amazing job after Eddie Jones tried to do his best to absolutely destroy them. And I think Les Kiss is one of the best coaches out there. So I think they'll do really, really well. And if they can get a couple of monsoons and stuff like that, they'll be excellent.
Yeah, well done, Australia. Absolutely chuffed for you because, as I've said all along, like a strong Australia is important for World Rugby, and I just want the game to be as good as it can be. Well done, the
100%.
Lions. Series win in Australia. Well done, Andy Farrell, and everything that's gone along with it. All the players, all the backroom staff, fantastic stuff. And I hope, well, I don't hope, I know they're going to have a brilliant time now, tonight, the next few days, and then whatever hot place they all decide to head off to for a well deserved break. Elko, any final words from yourself?
No, just thanks a million for having me on. It's been such great, and we often speak offline about how this rugby is so good for your mental health, and having that sort of friends and colleagues, and having something to talk about and be positive about the best sport in the world. So thanks for having me on, and keep the comments healthy, and the glass is always half full.
Indeed. Talking of comments, let's have in the comment section down below any players that we didn't mention that you thought played a pivotal role, any key moments that we didn't mention here. Don't forget, there's the other video over there, which I'll link again, where I went through lots of things in fine detail, my full-time thoughts. But let's have your comments about the match here. Thoughts about the series overall as well. Do you think the Lions were deserved winners? Do you think they probably should have won 3-0 but let it slip somehow? Let's have that in the comments down below, and we'll join you there for a friendly conversation. Give this video a thumbs up while you're down there. If you don't mind, it helps other great rugby fans just like you find it. And Elko, last time this Lions series, thank you so much.
Thanks, CT. See you soon, buddy.
Cheers, mate. And people at home, you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. And don't forget to get out and play.